Well, good afternoon. My name is Mark Anderson. I'm the project manager for the Red Wing Bridge project, and with me today is Mike Dougherty, our public affairs coordinator. I guess we'll jump into the what's been going on and what's going to happen portion of it here. So in the last month, the contractor has been working on the columns and the pier cap at Pier 1. They've also been working, they poured the concrete footing for Pier 2 and also the concrete plinth, and they've worked on the box culvert and the temporary retaining walls that they're building for that box culvert on the north end of the project in Wisconsin. Looking forward, they still have to pour the columns and the pier cap for Pier 2. And other than that, I think the major work going forward for probably the next several months is starting to erect the steel tub girders. Starting at the south abutment, they will build two temporary piers, basically, that'll allow them to use their beam launcher and push out the steel tub girders. They'll get them out and get them bolted together and then get them lifted into place between the south abutment and Pier 1. And they'll have 3 tub girders to do between that, in that span between south abutment and Pier 1. Then that'll probably take about a month, and then they'll start on the span from Pier 3 in Wisconsin and work back to Pier 2. And it'll be the same thing where they'll be able to put the girders together on the ground and lift them into place. And after they get span 3 done, they'll work on the river span. And that will get kind of time sensitive as we get into the shipping season and opening of the river. So that's kind of the schedule going forward. I don't know if there's any questions or any concerns about the project. Nothing? Okay. Anything you can think of, Mike, in the public affairs thing?
No, I think just talking about launching those girders and connecting them and all of that is going to be an interesting thing for people to monitor and watch. Just it has been done elsewhere, but it hasn't been done in our district, given the fact that there aren't that many bridges of that size to do it. But yeah, I think it'll be.
I think the nearest one probably was Lafayette on Highway 52, just south of the Capitol there.
Yeah. So it's one of those things and it'll definitely give the bridge much more shape. It'll take on even more of that bridge look. There's been so much preparation. I think people really get a sense of you don't just walk over the river and slap a bridge down. So this will really be at least a much more visual milestone that way. And I know coming into town on 61, we opened up a lane there.
Yeah, both right lanes have been opened. So
cleaning up the normal rock that tends to come down periodically, that was cleaned up, and so that's open. So that's good for motorists, I guess.
Yeah, it certainly makes it easier to turn off of the button hook now with that concrete barrier out of there.
Yeah, and I guess a lot of this work will then push us into, like you said, probably March, thereabouts.
Yeah, I think the shipping date, they're expecting sometime around March 15th to open the river. I mean, it'll depend on weather, of course, but that's about an average date, I believe. So they're hoping to have that span 2 up and ready before then. And a lot of that span 2 work that over the river will be done from barges, and even some of the stuff for Pier 1 will be done from the barge in the river. So
that's right.
It's an awful tight area there between the river and the tracks and ADM and everything that's right in that area. So a lot of it has to be done from the river. And you can see right now the contractor has been bringing in one of their big cranes that's sitting between the south abutment of the river bridge and the north abutment of the Highway 61 bridge, and they've been putting that together. So a lot of pieces of that coming in probably for another week or so. And then they'll start erecting their beam launcher and getting that put out there as well.
Wow.
So.
And then the box culvert you mentioned, again, there'll be a traffic will move at some point?
At some point. It's got up to a year settlement period on it, I believe. So at some point that'll settle out and we'll be able to put traffic over there and complete the second half of the box culvert.
Got it. And we have monitors, I guess, that measure the settlement, or how?
Yeah, and we have two different kinds of monitors for both the surcharge for the main highway roadway fill for the north abutment. There's settlement plates, which we shoot once a month and determine if the elevation of those plates and see if they're settling. There's also piezometers over there which measure the pore pressure and kind of tell us how things are settling out, if they're settling too fast or too slow. Not at all, I guess. And the same thing at the box culvert, they have settlement plates and piezometers in there being read.
And a lot of that work just has to do with the fact that in the history, I guess at some point it was part of the river, the soil is just not as strong. And
it's awful mucky, awful wet, and so they need to compress the sediment out of it before we put traffic on it. So
yeah.
There's anything else? I'll show a few pictures.
Okay.
So this is a picture of from the north abutment of the river bridge looking across at the pier cap as the steel is in place and they're starting to place the forms around that pier cap before the concrete's poured. Another shot looking from the north bank of the river, I guess, probably on the shore there. You can see the second set of forms has been placed around that rebar. And that's from the top of the false work around. You can see as they're doing the concrete pour and finishing the concrete there. And that's actually where the tub girders will sit on top of that pier cap. And in the back here, you can see the rebar for the spires that come up from that pier. Pretty much a picture of the same thing, just finishing the concrete as it's in the false work for the pier cap. Then over to Pier 2, this is as they're starting to get set up to pour the plinth that sits on top of the concrete footing. Another picture, pretty much the same thing, the concrete's actually being placed inside of it now. Another shot of from inside. And this is the box culvert in Wisconsin. You can see the sheet pile wall that's holding up the roadway now. And there you can see the wire mesh that is part of the temporary retaining wall that holds the fill for the roadway. You can see a better picture of it here. It's got mesh and then it's got fabric to hold the soils in place. And part of that wire or that wall, when we fill, you need the water to make sure you get compaction on your roadway soils. And that's as they're finishing a layer. There'll be another lift going up from there. So that should finish up sometime the end of this week, maybe early next, depending on the weather. And that was it.
Any other thoughts or questions? Is it going all right for you?
Well, yeah, now, because you're not working on Bluff Street right now.
Right. Yeah, they'll start that up in the spring again. They'll do the final paving and that in there and get the retaining walls stained, or at least the bottom 2 feet stained in that.
Yeah.
So.
Looks like a lot of dirt you have to move yet.
Yeah, there's quite a bit in there still.
Yeah, I think a lot of construction projects that we're hoping to wrap up some paving. It was so wet, and then the cold weather really locked in, and you can drive through almost any community. And there's the finish in spring kind of, but that's the way it worked this year. Next year, it could be mild and perfect, but
Hopefully it will be.
Yeah.
Be nice to get caught up here.
So you're not really, though, behind schedule too much on anything, are you?
No, I don't think, not really. It's just getting, I mean, it's kind of time sensitive now to get the steel tub girders set so they can get out of the ship, or get them done before the shipping season starts, so they're not sitting in the river. We're not waiting for barges to go through. Yep.
yeah, that's one of those places. It really is the confluence of transportation from the shipping to the rail to the highway.
Right, yep.
Yeah, and you got bicycles mixed in. It's just, yeah, I've always said right here in Red Wing, it is such a true reflection of overall transportation. Okay.
Okay, well, I guess if there's nothing else,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.